Welcome back to another edition of the Knight Report podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me once again is my co-host, Richie Schneiderite. Richie, we've been off for about a week. We have some news from yesterday that broke, though, kind of simmering behind the scenes. Karl Hobbs has left the program to join Georgia Tech in the same role. We got some basketball recruiting updates, and we got a little bit of football we'll cover. But let's start off right off the top with the big news. Karl Hobbs, who has been the associate head coach at Rutgers for the last 6 years under Steve Pikiell, has announced that he's leaving for Damon Stoudemire's staff at Georgia Tech. This one you could kind of see coming based on what we've been hearing. But tell us a little bit about how this came together and what Rutgers is losing in Karl Hobbs.
Yeah, so first off, shout out to our Georgia Tech site on the Rivals Network. They had it first before anyone. They gave us the info, and then we had it first among the Rutgers media. So shout out to them. That was pretty good. We've known he's been looking around. The man interviewed at any open position that was available within the Northeast. Temple, he was a finalist for, and then kind of backed off. It was a little interesting because he was one of the top three names I heard that was a finalist for the job, but apparently he called them and kind of was like, all right, yeah, I'm good. Like I'm going to back off now. And that was kind of weird. I don't know if he just got the hint that they were going to go younger with Adam Fisher anyway. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like, I'm going to back off before you guys even announce to make myself look a little bit better and save face.
Yep.
Interviewed in Manhattan. Thought that was a weird one. Didn't see that one coming. And they weirdly enough went with the Hartford coach. He's not a bad coach. He's not a great coach, but Hartford's getting relegated to D3 because their athletics department is a shit show, but whatever. And then he wanted a job. Like he wanted a new job. And there wasn't really a whole now, would Steve Pikiell have kept him? Probably. But there wasn't a whole big push to keep him. It was more like, all right, if you want to go, like that's fine. We understand. But Steve's loyal to his guys for everyone he's ever been with. He's like one of the most loyal people I've heard. I've talked to everybody in the basketball circles, and they just say Steve Pikiell's loyal to his guys. He'll do whatever it takes to keep them on board. Would you have liked to kept the staff together? Probably, but at the end of the day, some new fresh blood's not gonna hurt either. Because Karl didn't really do much on the recruiting trail. Yeah, he's a big name. He's one of the best assistant coaches ever. He's in the Assistant Coaches Hall of Fame. But recruiting wise, he only landed two guys in his tenure here, and that would be Jaden Jones and Mawat Mag. Obviously, Mawat Mag worked out. Jaden Jones didn't, but not a shark on the recruiting trail. So this could be an opportunity for Rutgers to get that shark on the recruiting trail to work with Brandon Knight and TJ Thompson, who have been phenomenal so far.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of said it all there. He's not one of the best recruiters on the staff. Those two you mentioned, Brandon Knight and TJ Thompson, are known as much better recruiters, and they're also younger, so it's much easier to relate to kids when you're 20 years older than them than 40 or 50 years older than them. I also think this is a great opportunity for Steve to kind of fix the offense with his assistant coach hire, because Karl Hobbs was responsible for the offensive game planning and the offensive sets. And as we all know, they weren't necessarily that great the last few years. So I do think this is a great opportunity for Steve to hit a home run with this next hire. And I really think he needs to hit a home run. You can't, like Jay Young was a great big man's coach, but he's obviously still the head coach right now at Fairfield. I know that name has been brought up, but I do think the most intriguing name, and the name that we've been kind of beating the drum for a couple years, is Brett McConnell, who is the associate head coach at Princeton. Princeton obviously just had their magical run this year, getting to the Sweet 16. Brett McConnell, if you don't know, he's 36 years old, former Rutgers basketball manager, Rutgers University alum. He's a guy that, had been in consideration for an assistant role at Rutgers in the past, but I think his star is shining very bright right now. We know from sources that he got a lot of interviews this past offseason. He actually turned down 2 Division I offers to be a head coach because they weren't the right fit. And people can say, like, why would he turn that down? There's certain programs that are just like doormats. Like for a program, let's say you're in the I don't know. Let's just say you're in the NEC and you've never made the tournament, and your AD doesn't have much money, you have no NIL, and your stadium sucks, your facilities suck. Like, is that really a great opportunity? No, it's not. And you kind of tie your career to your first head coaching opportunity. And if you don't hit it out of the park and you don't see an opportunity to do that, it's much better for you career-wise to wait a year, see what's out there next year. And I think you've seen that with Brandon Knight, and you've also now seen this with Brett McConnell. So are you hearing anything Rutgers related in regards to Brett McConnell right now, potentially replacing Karl Hobbs?
I know he's interested in the job, as he's been every time there's an opening. There's only been two times there's ever been an opening, and that was when Jay Young left and currently. So there is interest from his side. It sounds like McConnell is one of the main names to keep an eye on. The other name would probably be Jonathan Mitchell. He's over at Stetson, former 4-star at Rutgers. Actually transferred to Rutgers from Florida. Well known for that 4-point play against it was him, right? Against Villanova?
Yeah, Villanova, yep.
Yeah, to defeat Villanova at the rack. That was huge. He has experience playing under one of the best coaches in basketball currently, in Billy Donovan. He's Chicago Bulls head coach, former 4-star, Mount Vernon High School, which is like used to produce a ton of talent. All-time leading scorer, Gatorade Player of the Year for New York. Now, it is a little bit of a leap to go from Stetson to Rutgers, but he also GA'd at Georgia under Tom Crean, who's also a very good basketball coach in his own right. So, I mean, he does have experience at that high major level. Now, you can kind of sell the fact that he's been to Rutgers. He's a big man, too, which is only going to help with developing some of those guys down there, but in the paint. And he's played professionally overseas too, so he's got a lot of experience in basketball. I just don't know if I would go that route. I think Brett McConnell is easily the best name on our list currently. Like you said, someone mentioned Jay Young. Apparently Fairfield looked into buying him out this year, but they're going to give him one more year from what I heard. So this is where a McConnell kind of could work out. So McConnell turned down New Hampshire and he turned down NJIT head coaching jobs this offseason. He obviously wants something better. Come to Rutgers for that year, recruit for that year, do whatever you have to do for that year, and you're probably going to, as long as Rutgers has another good season, you're probably going to get a really good head coaching offer.
Yep.
That's not New Hampshire or NJIT, and you can probably get a mid-major job. And then if he leaves, maybe Jay Young gets bought out after a year at Fairfield, and conspiracy theory here, and there you go. You get Jay Young back on staff after McConnell, and it's it's just a whirlwind of good things happening for Rutgers basketball, if that's the case.
Yeah, speaking of a whirlwind of good things for Rutgers basketball, we had one of the three seniors who were in question about coming back between Paul, Cliff, and Andre Hyatt. Came out yesterday. You guys reported that Andre Hyatt will return next year. So
yes.
Crucial depth for the team in the 23-24 season. And I think if he could return to that role of being like the 6th or 7th man, that's like a perfect thing for him because he is the perfect teammate. Pike has gone out of his way to talk about how Andre will do anything for the team, no questions asked, whatever you need, coach kind of player. And Pike loves those kind of kids. So if he's the heat check guy, he could come in for 8 minutes at a time, play like 20 to 24 minutes a game. That's like perfect role for Andre. Yeah.
No, it's good to get him back. You don't need much out of him. It's just depth at this point. We noticed that the depth then, the 3/4 was a struggle when Mag went down. So just to have him back on the roster again, he's a 6-year guy. It might not impact wins and losses, but it's going to just impact the roster overall, and you'll have depth. Like that's huge. Like you never know what might happen with injuries. Knock on wood, hopefully nothing, but. Mag's not going to be back till probably December, so having Hyatt there is going to help a little bit, just make that transition a little bit smoother. I still don't think he starts. I still think he comes off the bench, and I think we've noticed that he's better off the bench, and that he's better in that like spark plug type role. I think Mulcahy, if he returns, which it sounds like he still might return, is probably going to be the 3 going forward.
And I mean that's kind of his natural position, honestly. Like. When you're in high school and you're playing, and I don't know how big Gil St. Bernard is in terms of like the Northeastern schools, but
it's pretty big.
When you're like the big fish in the small pond, it's kind of like in high school football where everybody who's a top prospect plays quarterback because you want the ball in his hands all the time. It's kind of like what Paul was in high school. He was a 6'7" point guard because they want the ball in his hands because he can dominate everybody at that size and that's that height in high school.
Yeah. So I think he fits that role just because he can distribute the ball. He's starting to hit corner threes more and starting to hit like jumpers. Like he's starting to develop more of his offensive game, which is good. It's not anywhere where it needs to be, but I think in that role, I think he'll fit pretty well, especially if you're going to get a point guard that can shoot pretty well. Yeah,
it's a great transition there. So Rutgers had a transfer visitor this past weekend, and Noah Fernandes from UMass. He's a 6'11", or he's a 5'11", 180-pound guard. He has 1 year of eligibility left. This past season, before he got hurt, he was shooting 45% on high volume from three. I mean, you watch this kid's tape, and the more I watch it, the more I'm just like drooling over the prospect of having him lead our offense, because he's just so mature, so patient. He always seems to he's a little bit ball dominant, which is something the offense would have to adjust to. But he always seems to make the right read, whether it be to take the ball, whether it be to take the extra dribble. He's very quick he's very quick and decisive when there's an open shot, even if it's from 27 feet, and he hits those shots, which is impressive enough to see. But yeah, he'd be a fantastic addition. What are you hearing there?
Yeah, so it sounds like he's verbally committed, to be honest with you. That's the rumor going around right now. Everyone's saying it. I just got a DM today I got a DM I read today. I got a DM that was sent on Tuesday from someone up in the UMass area, and he basically just said, "Hey, good news is coming soon." And I was like, "All right, well, thanks for that. Appreciate that." I'm pretty confident he ends up at Rutgers. It sounds like everything went really well. It also helps that Butler landed 2 guards.
They've landed 3 guards.
Actually. 3 guards. So that's not sugarcoat the impact that has. But this is the guy Peichel wanted really bad, and he landed him. So this is a really good get. Now, I know you mentioned he's definitely ball dominant, like in his tape, but that's just a bad UMass team. Like, obviously, he would have been scoring with 14.9, or I'm sorry, that was the season before, with 11.5, right? Did I read that right? 13.4. Geez, I can't talk. But yeah, he's definitely ball dominant, but it's not a good UMass team. He did only play 11 games this past season, so he's coming back from injury, I believe. So it's going to be an interesting role. He's going to have to adjust a little bit and take less shots, but when he does shoot, he shoots at a high percentage. He was shooting 42.8 for his career and nearly 38% from three. Add that with Cam Spencer, potentially Gavin Griffith starting at the 4 early on because Mag's going to be out. Holy shit, you went from a shitty offensive team to a good offensive team.
Yeah, and I was talking with Ant Wright about this. He had a Twitter space recently, and he said that, and I know this is a bit sacrilege for Rutgers fans, and I don't want anyone to take this the wrong way, but I do think that McConnell graduating will help this team. And that's only because offensively he was so limited. Defensively, he was one of the best players in recent memory in college basketball. But shooting 22% from three on decent volume, his main go-to offensive repertoire was like these very low efficient shots. So he loved, the shot from the elbow. He loved these like fadeaways from the baseline. Those shots are just like, they're like vestigial at this point. It's not the shot that the analytics tell you to take, and he didn't hit him at a high enough rate that it made sense to take him. So I love Caleb. I don't want to make it sound like I'm saying bad things about him, but I do think that it might be for the best for the growth of the program that he graduated.
Yeah, I know going back to Fernandes too, some people have questioned his height because Rutgers is so used to having like a 6'6" point guard. Mm-hmm. Even before that, like Gio was pretty tall at point guard too. But everyone's like, yeah, he's 5'11". How's he going to do it? And I'm like, dude, stop. Like, that's like majority of college basketball. Like, the Big Ten is the only conference that, for the most part, doesn't have tiny guards. But the more I think about it, like Michigan's been able to do it with, I forget who their tiny guard was. They had a tiny guard recently. Minnesota had the kid that transferred to Texas in a car.
Yeah, Carr. Yep.
Like, there's so many tiny guards that have worked in the Big Ten, and they've worked at a pretty high rate. Like, this is not like it's something unheard of. And
yep.
You see it more and more nowadays. Why do you think the Big Ten gets destroyed in the tournament every year? Because these smaller guards dominate these tall, slower guards. This is what Rutgers needs. Rutgers needs this guy. Now you have him packaged with Derek Simpson coming in behind him. And you have it's a small guard lineup, but that's okay. It's a good guard lineup.
Yep. Yeah, no, I think it'd be a really, really good offensive team, especially from three. You have 3 guys who could realistically hit for higher than 40% from beyond the arc. Mm-hmm. That's a dangerous team, especially in March.
Yeah.
So
sure.
Are you hearing anything else regarding transfers, or is Fernandes kind of the only one that seems Rutgers is going after right now?
That's probably the only name at the moment. They definitely want to add one more piece at least, if not two. I know they want a wing, so a 3/4 type of guy, because you don't want to thrust Gavin Griffiths into the starting lineup. But it's not the worst thing in the world either, because the guy can shoot the shit out of the ball and he'll be fine. I think. Yeah. I think defensively is where it's a little bit of a liability for a freshman to do that at the 4. But he probably loses that starting role as soon as Mag comes back too. But him coming off the bench is fine too. Like, it's not a big deal.
Yep. He'll be a key member of the rotation at the worst. Like, he's going to be playing 20 to 25 minutes. Same as you gotta see someone.
You're good.
Sorry about that. He'll be playing a huge role. It might not be in the starting lineup, but I think starting lineups are a bit overrated. Just because you're the first one on the court doesn't necessarily mean you're the most important player on the team. But yeah, and something that I thought was key for Gavin to say, and I was reading a couple of interviews with him when he committed. He was talking about how, he's got a really good offensive game, but he knows his biggest area of improvement is defense, and he knows that Peichel's one of the best defensive coaches in the country, and he can't wait to get in there to be a better defender. And I mean, defense is so much about, will and want to. Like, you have to want to be – it's just effort. You have to want to give the effort to be a good defender, and that's 80% of being a good defender is wanting to be one. So
yeah,
good to hear from him.
Makes sense. I know we're going to transition to a different sport in a sec, but I forgot to mention one other name not name anymore. I know Steve Peichel was very interested in Derek Kellogg and to replace Karl Hobbs. Derek Kellogg was the UMass assistant coach. He played at UMass from 91 to 95. I think when did Pike play? No, Pike was right before that, right?
Yeah, he was in, I think, like the late 80s playing.
Yeah, so I mean, they never crossed paths in terms of coaching with one another, but Kellogg played under Calipari, coached under Calipari at Memphis, and then got a head coaching job at UMass. He's back at UMass again as assistant coach. He just got hired by Creighton, I think, the other day. Okay. So yeah, I know Peichel was looking into him, because it's not like this. Yes, the Karl Hobbs news just got announced yesterday, but a lot of people knew it was happening for longer than that. So I think we posted on Tuesday, I believe it was. Monday, I forget, whatever it was. So even then, like, the staff knew more than likely way before that. So it seems like he was option kind of number one for Pike, but I don't even know if I go that far. I know he was just one of the main options that Pike really was intrigued by and kind of wanted him to get on staff. But Creighton ended up getting him, so now we're looking at Brett McConnell and John Mitchell as the next two names. Other names, I know we didn't mention really other names. We have 10+ guys on our hot board. I would keep a close eye on Ricard at Stony Brook. He's been with Pike forever. He was technically at Rutgers for 2 months before going back to Stony Brook, where he I forget what it was. It had something to do with his wife and being closer to her. And I know Stony Brook's not far, but he just wanted to go back there. He's actually been the associate head coach of both the men's and women's programs in the past, which I found super intriguing. Just because it is a totally different game, but he was considered Pike's offensive coordinator at Stony Brook. So I maybe he's not the best recruiter in the world. I don't really know how he recruited at Stony Brook, but he was named one of the top low major coaches, assistant coaches in I think he was and he was also a top 5 American East assistant coach during his time at Stony Brook as well. So he's not in a high major level, but Pike knows him, and like I said before, Pike trusts his guys. Pike's all about loyalty. And his offenses were pretty damn good at Stony Brook, so that I would keep a close eye on him. And plus, if he was the offensive coordinator, he's been to Rutgers. Maybe now this time around, it's like, hey, hear me out.
Yeah, totally. And it seems like Pike tends to kind of stay within his family tree when he's looking to hire. So it'll be interesting to see what other names kind of emerge as candidates, because obviously, the Hobbs news just broke yesterday. And so this will be an evolving situation, especially if McConnell does not end up being the choice.
Yeah, of course.
Before we move on to another sport, I think there's something very juicy we need to talk about.
Ooh,
obviously, class of 2024, we have one of the best commitments in the country from Ace Bailey, Georgia kid. plays on an AAU team in Georgia called AOT. I forget what that stands for.
Athletes of Tomorrow.
Athletes of Tomorrow, run by Omar Cooper, or Sharif Omar Cooper. So the USA Men's National, Junior National minicamp was in Houston over the Final Four weekend. I don't know if Dylan stuck around in the Southeast or flew back out into Georgia to join Athletes of Tomorrow for some AAU games. That happened last week, which was obviously great content for you guys or for us, because that was any clip of of Dylan and Ace playing together was guaranteed to just get crazy engagement. What are you hearing about how that came together? And obviously that's got to bode really well for Rutgers that these two are getting that close.
Yeah, I see the Duke site. I see what they're posting. Shut up, dude. Like the fact that they're like they're acting like it's nothing. Like they're like this. Dylan Harper's from New Jersey, went to Houston to play for Team USA. This man doesn't just go to Georgia for shits and giggles. He goes to Georgia to play with Ace Bailey, who he just played with at Team USA. It's not like he didn't just have the experience playing with him. Like he just had it. And basically he said to himself, this kid's good. I'm going to go fucking play with him again. Watch this. And I'm going to go play with his other teammate that's going to Rutgers too. So it's like everyone wants to talk about it's just Ace Bailey. He went to play with JaMychal Davis and Ace Bailey. So now he has experience with both of them. And you saw what they were doing. They were just chucking the ball up court. Like it wasn't even like a game for them.
Yeah. If you watch those clips, it's just they both can create a shot for themselves so seamlessly. So it's almost like they're toying with the defense. Like they won their one game by 30 points against another top AAU team. Dylan and Ace, the alley-oops, the full court passes. Dylan looking like a friggin' 5-star quarterback with some of the passes that he was making. Ace, man, I know you wanted to talk about Dylan, but his offensive game is just so advanced for a high schooler. It is incredible the amount of moves that he has, the ability he has to create a shot from anywhere on the court at his size is so impressive to watch.
Yeah, he's gonna be really good. I'm telling you, as soon as this AAU circuit hits and he's healthy, he's gonna get that number one spot. And I'm gonna have that article written ASAP. I'm gonna have it pre-written because I know what's gonna happen. I know damn well he's going to AAU season. People are going to be like, holy shit, man, this kid's fucking good. Like, and I hate saying it, but he just reminds me of Durant. He's so skinny. He plays that 4 role, can play defense, can shoot from anywhere, can score from anywhere. He's athletic as fuck. It's like a Durant mold almost. Maybe Durant was a little taller, but
he's a little bigger. Durant's, I believe, right around 7 feet now.
Now he's tall. That's shit.
But the defensive, the versatility that we'll be able to have on the court with Ace, because Ace could play a 5, and it's not a small ball 5 lineup. Like he could defend centers. Maybe he wouldn't be able to defend like a Kofi Coburn, but he can defend, the majority of centers. He can honestly guard 1 through 5. If you watch him, he is a very, very good defender as well. But just like the flexibility we'll have with our lineups with Ace on the court is going to be awesome. But Dylan, man, the more they hang out, the more you feel like Dylan is leaning more and more towards Rutgers. Am I off base here?
No, you're spot on. I want to do it so bad. I said this to you off the pod, and I'll say it on here too. I want to submit it. I want to put the future cast in, and I might just do it. I might actually do it because that's how confident I am. As long as Brandon Knight's on staff too.
Yep.
I don't see him losing that battle. And he's earning his paycheck recently. Especially on the recruiting trail. If he lands Ace Bailey, got a great connection to that family. He's got a great connection to the Harper family. I think this is all Rutgers all the way. I think they have a really good shot. And you're going to have a tandem, a duo that's going to be incredible. And then you no one wants to talk about it. Gavin Griffiths, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper. No one talks about Delquan Warren, and it's messed up. Like he's so really good. Damn good too. He's I think we have him up to 72 in our rankings, and he's only getting better. Like every time we watch him, he gets better. He's just a facilitator. He's a true traditional point guard. Have that facilitator with guys that Dylan can score at will.
Yep.
Ace can score at will. Griffiths is just going to spot up in the corner. He's not going to have to do anything. it's going to be an insane lineup. And then they're in it for Lathan Somerville, who we mentioned. It's coming down to Missouri or Rutgers at this point. Wants to decide within the next month. I think the Missouri visit's coming up soon, so that's going to be a tough one to hold off. But Rutgers can hold them off and kind of sell Somerville on the fact that he could be playing with 3 5-stars in the same exact lineup as him, and several other 4-stars. Like I used to, you might be able to land him, but I used to have these tweets ready for when Rutgers had Mathis and they had Mulcahy and Amori and all them, and I was like, wow, Rutgers is sporting an all 4-star lineup. Now I'm like, holy shit, man! Like they might have a fucking all 5-star lineup. Like
I know it's crazy how quickly Pike has elevated this program.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So exciting, so hyped. Can't wait to just see how things go next, because I think next year will be a really good team. Like I think we'll be better next year than they were this year, which is hard to believe because. At one point we were a 4 seed. I think we'll be a top 5 Big Ten team next year when all is said and done, especially if the Fernandes thing works out, because we just need, I love Derek, but I think he needs a year to kind of learn how to be the main guy. Last year he was there out of necessity. Like sometimes guys have to play because there's nobody else to fill in that role. Like for football, Gus Zielinskis, look at what he did. His true freshman year, he started at center, and then he didn't really play at all last year. That's because, and Giannis said this, he played before he was ready. Now he's ready. Derek got thrust into a role he probably wasn't fully ready for, but showed flashes of brilliance. I think with a little bit more seasoning, he could be a very, very good player. Now, is there anything basketball related you wanted to touch on that we didn't touch on before we move on to football?
Yeah, just real quick, scheduling. Someone just asked me what the rumors are with scheduling currently. Obviously, you'll see like John Rothstein and all those guys are tweeting out all kinds of confirmations of games, home and homes, neutral sites, etc. Don't expect Rutgers in one of those tournaments. They're not going to do it. They're not about it. It's fine. I'm not happy about that. Whatever. The Bahamas thing, I'm going to shoot down. We talked to Richard Kent about it the other day. He mentioned that it's probably not happening, despite some rumors from media members near Rutgers. So that one's not happening. There will be an MTE technically at the rack. They do this every year. It's some like random no-name MTE. I shouldn't say random no-name. I actually don't know who the guy is that it's named after, but it's going to be low-level schools. It always is. It's like we know they're playing Long Island, so it wouldn't shock me if Long Island, say Central Connecticut, and I don't know, Fairfield or Sacred Heart. We do know Fairfield is supposedly on the schedule. I don't know if that's going to be another fundraiser game like it was last year or not, or it will be actually a scheduled game. We'll kind of wait and see what happens there. And then they have an out-of-conference game at MSG. They just kind of figuring out what the opponent's going to be. It could be Providence, could be St. John's, could be Gonzaga. But it sounds like Gonzaga's probably out of that one because they're being big babies about it. But we'll see. Yeah, sorry,
interesting.
I'm just going to call them out. Okay.
No,
it's on them.
It's interesting hearing like the behind-the-scenes machinations of how schedules formed. It's not like Rutgers hasn't tried to add some marquee teams. It just hasn't worked out. Like the Baylor and Gonzaga, like we had some big-time matchups lined up. It just didn't work out.
They had Gonzaga on the schedule last year, and they backed out again. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I get it. You don't want to come to the East Coast. You don't want to play at the rack. Rutgers is giving you an opportunity to play at MSG right now. That's your opportunity, and they're gonna have. I don't think they're gonna have a good team next year either. So,
no,
we'll see.
Because they lose so much. Drew Timme obviously meant so much to that team, and he's not a Chet Holmgren level recruit walking in the door, so they might see a little bit of a downturn, but they're still a great program, so they should still win the West Coast Conference, or at least come in second. Like St.
They're going to get Taron Armstrong too, so it's a pretty damn good transfer.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little football. So football is now in week 3 of spring practice. They have pushed their first scrimmage back from this past Saturday to this Saturday, which is a bummer because I went to the past weekend's practice expecting a scrimmage, and it ended up not being scrimmage. But that's besides the fact. So it sounds like they have a pretty good visitor list in the upcoming few days. So let's talk about who's coming to visit for Rutgers.
Let me find that. I know. Actually, we could just start off with the guy who did just visit, and Colin Cubberley. He was on a 2-day visit, which I found pretty interesting for a guy of his caliber. I think he's a high 3-star for us right now. I want to say he's ranked number 3 in New York currently. So it's back to New York again for Rutgers recruiting. He's an intriguing one because Wisconsin made a little bit of a push for him, but it seems like they're kind of shifting their focus towards Marcus Harrison, a different offensive lineman who's massive from New York. He's like, they're both in the 6'6", 6'7" range. Cubberley, if you see his pictures, you just look at him and he says, I think he's a legit 6'6", 310 pounds at least. He came to campus, so that was good to get him back. I think they have a decent shot at him. Corey Duff, the tight end, wide receiver, whatever you want to call him, from St. Anthony's, came to campus. He scheduled an official visit as well. This was all on Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday. He scheduled an official visit to Rutgers, scheduled one to North Carolina, and he's scheduling one for Syracuse. Now, I don't see Syracuse as a main factor there. I think it's going to come down to UNC or Rutgers. They do have a new OC in North Carolina, so that's playing a little bit of a factor there because it's kind of to be determined how he would be used there. Now, I think Duff sees himself as a wide receiver at the next level, but I think his build just screams tight end to me. And that's not a bad thing. It's not like you're just going to be like a blocker all of a sudden. Like Kirk Soraka uses his tight ends as receivers quite a bit, or has in the past. I'm sure he'll do it again in this year going forward too. But those two were pretty good. Aris Bethia kind of showed up like as a surprise guest because when we got the visitor list of confirmed guys, all of a sudden Aris Bethia tweeted out like a couple hours before the next day, and I'm like, oh shit, like you going too? And he's like, yeah, I got to go see it again. I'm like, oh okay, like let me know how it goes. So you could get that little E-Hall combo between him and Caden Brown relatively quickly. It sounds like those two are getting closer to a decision. I don't know how close, but we have a future cast in for Brown. I think if Brown goes, I think his former teammate in Pop Warner Ball, Duff, will end up committing. And then I think Aris Bethia is right there. It's an all New York class again. And that's not a bad thing. Other than that, today, Benjamin Black will be on campus. He was actually on campus yesterday as well. He's another tight end they're looking at. He's 6'6", 230 out of Miami. As I kind of mentioned before, Soraka uses his tight ends a lot, so they want at least 2 in this class. Corey Duff, like I mentioned, could be kind of a receiver tight end, but this is more of a – I mean, Blackburn's a pretty good wide receiver too. I shouldn't say he's just a tight end, but those two were good. Blake Woodby, near 5-star. I think he's a 4-star for us. In the 2025 class, he's number 58 overall, will be on campus today. Everyone's favorite recruit, Nick Parisi, will be on campus today. He'll be joined by Alex Menji, who's another tight end. A lot of tight ends on campus. And Teddy Foster, I didn't even mention, will be on campus Saturday for the scrimmage. Cardinal Mooney High School, former high school or head coach, geez, I got to say this correctly. Safeties coach Drew Lascari, who will be talking with us today, also was the head coach of Cardinal Mooney a couple years ago, so there's a good connection there. Teddy Foster loves Rutgers. His recruitment has a couple big offers. He was being pushed a little bit by Florida State, but it seems like they're kind of backing off. I think Rutgers could land him on Saturday. I think they have a really good chance. I've had a close idea for submitting a future cast for him. I'm a little indifferent, but he's a very, very good cornerback recruit. He's that tall, lengthy corner that Graciano loves at 6'2", 170. I think Rutgers could land him, and I think Rutgers could land at least 4 of the guys I just mentioned. So I think recruiting is going to start seeing an uptick, especially with the spring game coming up. I think they'll land probably one before the spring game. I don't want to say for certain. If it's not before the spring game, it might be the day of the spring game. So let's kind of wait and see.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah,
it sounds like recruiting's going pretty well for out-of-state kids right now, but not necessarily in-state kids.
That's going to be an interesting one. See how that one finishes out.
So what else football related is there worth talking about? Obviously, can't say much about what you've seen at practices. What else we got?
Hate on the hype, but they're not building hype at all. Like it's funny because someone on our boards didn't ask the staff ask our experts yesterday. they're like, why is there no football content? I'm like, dude, look at the spring practice hub we have posted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 player stories on top of 4 other practice notebook stories, on top of 9 videos, on top of a million tidbits that we can give away. We can't give out much. We give out as much as we can. And they're, in terms of social media, they're not really posting a whole lot either. Like, they posted the Mike Higgins clip, which was pretty nice, of that really nice catch, but they haven't posted another clip or photo since. So it's like, they've only posted photos twice, and then they posted the Mike Higgins clip, and that's it. Like, that's all we can kind of talk about. We're not allowed to talk about what is seen in practice. We're not going to be allowed to talk about what's seen in the scrimmage. As nice as the Mike Higgins catch was, I'm looking at it again now. Evan Simon really understood that ball. That was bad. And I don't want to say it looked like a duck, but if it quacks like a duck, flies like a duck, it's a duck. Not good. But a great catch by Mike Higgins. And I think he's going to see a pretty big role this year because he's probably your second best receiver at tight end right now. I'd argue it's probably still Johnny just because Johnny's more experienced, but I think Mike Higgins' ceiling is a lot higher than Johnny's. And then everyone wants to talk about Konopka because we talked to Konopka recently.
Yep.
And he gave some good quotes, but nothing crazy. So we'll see what happens. They're going to use a ton of tight ends, 2 tight end sets, I think. I think that's just Kirk's MO at this point. And it helps with blocking too, especially when you don't have blocking up front. There's another tight end up there, which just another blocker is just going to help. So not a ton to talk about that team.
I think if there was to be any breakout offensive players, it probably would be at tight end because if you look at guys like Mike Higgins and Victor Konopka, they have like the prototypical build for a modern tight end in terms of size, in terms of wingspan, in terms of having that athletic ability, in terms of, being natural pass catchers, that the receiver core doesn't really have. You have a guy, like most of the receivers are fairly small, and, if they would have broken out, they probably would have broken out last year. Like, I think a guy like Rashad Rochelle has some serious upside, but he's still young. But other than that, it's like Nasir Brantley hasn't, I don't think he's with the program yet, right?
Nasir Brantley? No, he's with the program.
Okay, so he's recovering from an injury, though, because he had that knee injury the end of last season. So between a guy like him and potentially adding another receiver in the portal, I think that's kind of where our offense is going to lean this year, is guys who may not be practicing with the team yet.
It's when we talked to Brock the other day, and he's quite the character. He talked about Brantley's experience and his skill set, and kind of mentioned he's kind of said he's going to be an integral part of this offense, which we kind of knew already because they don't have anyone at wide receiver with experience, and he's the guy with the most experience. He needs to get stronger, I think. I think that's kind of the case for most wide receivers, but he can play pretty much anywhere. Brock mentioned he's probably one of the outside wide receivers, which not a surprise. And then he mentioned Rochelle can kind of be a plug and play. You could kind of put him anywhere. That's why he played running back, and he's not afraid of contact, which is the main reason why he played running back. Other than that, you can't explain why he played running back at all. But I think he'll be a pretty solid receiver as well. They need a transfer. It's without question. I said it on the boards, and I know they want a wide receiver. I know they want a offensive lineman. I think you need 2 wide receivers. I think you need a tight end, and I think you need at least 1 to 2 offensive linemen. They need help on offense, in my opinion. I don't think that's going to change. I've been saying that from before spring practice, and it's just they need help on offense. There's not a lot of experience there. I think you need a wide receiver 1, and I just don't know. I think the portal actually opens this weekend, right?
I don't know when the next portal window opens. It's soon though. It's in mid to late April.
I can tell you in a second. I believe it opens this weekend. Yeah, spring window. 45-day period set to open on April 15th, so that would be Saturday. So they need to get on that ASAP. I don't even know who's in the portal currently from the last go around. Yep. I know Jaquay Jackson just did visit, who was it, Miami?
Oh, geez.
He liked, was it Miami, right?
I mean, I know he was talking to Miami. I don't know. I haven't kept up with where he visited, though.
I believe he just visited Miami. Yes, he was at Miami this weekend. If Miami wants him, it's going to be hard to keep him away from that one.
Yep.
They need receiver help too. He visited West Virginia after visiting Rutgers, so it's kind of down to those three if I had to guess. I don't know when a decision's expected just yet, but I know we posted the article with quotes from him. He liked the Rutgers visit a lot. I found it interesting. His quote from the Miami visit, now this might just be a lyric and I might be missing this completely. It said, "Came a long way, but this ain't where I want to be." Now that could mention, like, I don't want to be in college. I want to make it to the league. I don't want to be in Miami. So we'll see. I don't know. It's definitely interesting. It's hard to decipher some of these captions and Instagram stuff too. It is tough, but we'll see what happens there. I'm going to say right now that he probably doesn't end up at Rutgers, and I think Rutgers is going to have to go elsewhere. But you need a wide receiver so bad. So
yeah,
I just don't know where they go for it.
Yep, amongst other positions probably. But we've talked about that a lot between needing probably an offensive lineman, at least one receiver. If we're being real, probably a quarterback, but we know that's not going to happen either. So.
No, that won't happen. So we'll just kind of wait and see, I guess, at this point. I think that's it, right? For the most part?
Yeah, that's it. Thanks again for joining us, guys. If you haven't already, a lot of you have rated and reviewed us on the different podcasting apps, and we really appreciate that. If you haven't yet, and you listen to all our pods, don't know what you're waiting for, man or lady, please do it. It really helps us gain more of an audience, which helps get it in more people's ears, which helps us get better interviews. And, we've talked to a lot of people on this podcast because of, listeners like you who've helped grow the show.
Got a guest on Monday.
We do have a guest coming up on Monday, a Rutgers football alum who everybody should know, longtime NFL player for Rutgers football. So that's exciting to keep an eye out for, who will be also attending, I believe, the scrimmage. So
yes,
he might be able to say some things and not get in trouble for it. So definitely give that a listen. Subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. Be really appreciated. But for me and Richie, this has been another edition of the Night Report podcast. Signing off.